YouTube, in this video, I'm going to be ranking every NBA Eastern Conference team's bench from worst to best for the upcoming 2024-25 season. This, of course, being the fourth installment of our four-part series, where in part 1 and 2, we ranked every Western Conference and Eastern Conference team's starting five, and then in part 3, we ranked every Western Conference team's bench, and now it's time to move on over to the East to round things out and rank these teams' benches from 15 to 1. The links to part 1, 2, and 3 will be down in the description below, so make sure you guys check those out if you guys haven't seen them already. And just before we get into the video, I just want to give the criteria for the rankings. All right, how I'm going to be ranking these teams based off their benches is number 1, positional depth. All right, so if you have a quality backup point guard, wing, and center to make a competent 8-man rotation, you're probably going to be pretty high on this list. Now, the second bit of criteria is going to be how good is the best player on your bench. You know, what does your 6-man situation look like? Do you have a guy that can come in and play 25 to 30 minutes per night on a winning basketball team and contribute good production? And the final thing is, you know, not really a piece of criteria, but I do want to mention it. If a player is injured to start the season, but they will be expected to return, you know, midway through the season, they will be included in this video. If a player is out for the entire season with an injury, they will not be included in this video. So a good example is Mitchell Robinson for the Knicks. I'm going to have him in my Knicks ranking for their bench because he will be coming back at some point healthy for the Knicks. Without further ado, let's get right into ranking every Eastern Conference team's bench for the upcoming 2025 season. Let's go, folks. I just want to stress this really important point that the 15th ranked team all the way up to like maybe even the 5th ranked team, these first 10 or so spots are incredibly close. In fact, there's not even much separating a lot of these benches at all from each other. I just had to do my best in ranking them either way. And so off of my criteria that I'm giving, I think there's a really good separation between like 5 and the top 4 teams. But other than that, I think I could be convinced either way that the first 10 or so teams I'm going to be ranking in this video could be swapped with one another. So if you have an argument for it, let me know down in the comment section. I will be willing to hear it and even change my mind. Let's get into the rankings. Coming in at number 15, I'm going to have the Toronto Raptors bench. And you know, this is actually, again, there are so many good groups on this list, and actually even the 15th team I think has a pretty good group. And if you look at the Raptors situation here, really the only hole in this bench is at the guard position. I mean, you have a bunch of unproven guys, not saying they can't be good for the Raptors, not saying they won't be good for the Raptors, but at the end of the day, we just haven't seen it so much in the NBA. You have a rookie coming in who you drafted in the first round in Jacoby Walter. Bruce Brown at the forward position technically could be considered a guard, and that's why, you know, it's kind of tough to rank this team where it is, because Bruce Brown, one of the best bench players, you know, for what he does specifically on the floor, I think he's phenomenal at it, and, you know, one of the best in the league coming off of the bench to fill that role. It's kind of a utility player who can kind of do everything. So I get the case if you want to rank him a guard, but, you know, if you just look at his minute distribution at each position, he's really played forward a lot over the past few years, and so he's kind of a forward at this point. But, you know, the big man situation is definitely good. Kelly Olynyk probably going to be one of the better backup fives. He played so well towards the end of the season with Toronto last year. So it's really, again, it's really hard to rank this team 15th. And, you know, as I mentioned before, I could be convinced that the Raptors are like 8th or 7th. You know, it's just so much little separation. The only, you know, weakness in this team, not saying Davion Mitchell won't be a good player, not saying Jacoby Walter won't be good, but just when I look at some of these other teams with, you know, the guard group, they're a little bit more proven, you know, on winning teams. And so, you know, I do love Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk as 6th and 7th men. They're both quality 6 men, fit the criteria there, no question. I like Abaji, I like Chris Boucher. You know, the forwards and center group is good. It's just the guard. That's kind of my only issue with this team. Other than that, I could be proven wrong halfway through the season when, you know, Davion Mitchell and Jacoby Walter start playing good minutes here. But Raptors at 15. Now, coming in at number 14, again, people are going to be upset with this. You know, I'm totally fine with that. I did do a lot of thinking about this list. Again, I could be convinced that this team is like number 5, but I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. And one of the big things about the Cavs bench that I like is the depth at, you know, guard and forward. Okay, so you have like so many playable guards and forwards. You know, backup point guard's probably going to be Craig Porter Jr., who I like a lot as a player. I think he's going to take a step up this season. Karis LeVert to come in and provide some offense. Maybe we could see him be a little bit more consistent and efficient this season, but obviously a good player. And then at the forward position, you're stacked. I mean, you really have 4 guys that could see minutes when we're talking about Isaac Okoro, George Niang, JT Thor, and Jalen Tyson. I think all of those guys will get an opportunity to be in this rotation this season. And then I didn't even mention for the guards, Sam Merrill, who is a sniper out there on the wing. So the problem with the Cavs bench is, who is this team's backup center? Who is it even going to be? Is it Dean Wade? Is it Tristan Thompson? Who's going to play these center minutes in case of an injury? Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But if Evan Mobley or Jarrett Allen were to go down for any period of time, who steps in at that 5 role? One of them would probably slide to the 5, whether it's Evan Mobley or Jared Allen. So I guess this team doesn't really need the best backup 5 in the world, but they really don't have one at all. You know, Dean Wade isn't really a 5. He's more of a power forward in my opinion. He's played most of his minutes at power forward his entire career. I guess in a pinch he could play center, and at Tristan Thompson is just not, it's not great at that point. So that is a glaring hole in this team's bench for me. Again, I know they aren't going to need a center to come in and play big minutes because they can stagger Allen and Mobley. But listen, man, this is my criteria. You know, I'm ranking teams off of positional depth, and I don't even see a competent center on this team's bench. And so that's kind of why I have them at 14th. But you, again, I could hear a case that they're way higher. I just have them there for that reason. Now, coming in at number 13 on the list, I'm going to have the Washington Wizards. And again, this is another team with great positional depth. The guard room is pretty good. You know, Bilal Coulibaly, you know, he's basically a wing, but whether he's going to play guard or forward, you know, either one, I think. Bob Carrington's going to be your backup point guard most likely, which is a great thing. Obviously, all rookies are unproven, and so that's kind of part of the criteria. We'll have to see if Bob Carrington is an efficient player in his rookie season, but I love his game overall, and I would bet money that he's going to be a good player in this league. Corey Kispert, Sadiq Bey, Keyshawn George, Patrick Baldwin Jr. I mean, these guys, like Corey Kispert, is so underrated as a player. He is so good out there on the perimeter shooting. One of the best, you know, catch and shoot guys, I think personally. He's also, you know, much more than just a shooter. And then obviously Sadiq Bey coming over from the Hawks. He's coming off that injury. We'll have to see what he looks like, but this is another good forward here that could shoot the basketball. And then at the center position, you have 3 guys that could be competing for this backup center spot with Marvin Bagley III, Tristan Vukovic, and Richaun Holmes. I mean, Tristan Vukovic looks like an extremely high upside prospect. You know, he had a really good few games with the Wizards last season. I know it's a really small sample size for Vukovic, but when you look at his production, when you look at his skill set, when you look at what he could be able to do in the future, he's such a young talent. This is a guy I'd pay attention to if I were a Wizards fan or just any fan in general. This guy could be a really solid, versatile center in this league. You know, whether he's going to play the backup 4 or the backup 5, I think either one could make sense. You know, Marvin Bagley, I will say, has been a little bit better than people give him credit for if you just look at his numbers. And then Richaun Holmes, you know, extending on a deal to stay in Washington. You know, whether he'll play big minutes or not, I'm not sure, but this is a veteran, you know, proven talent that brings high intensity and effort and hustle and, you know, rebounding on the interior for any team he's on. So again, this team is really good, like in all areas pretty much, but maybe too many players to where you say, which guys are going to even get a role on this team? You know, it's never a bad thing to have too many good players, but a lot of these guys are unproven. And so I'd rather go into the season having like 4 guys that you know are rotation caliber, really good replacements and substitutions for your starters at any given time. They're consistent, prove that they could be on a winning team. I'd rather have like 4 of those guys and a quality 6 men within that 4-man group than have like, you know, 8 guys that might be looking for a role. We know 2 or 3 of them are going to be really good in their roles, but the other guys, it's just kind of up in the air. So that's kind of my reasoning. You might look at this list and say, wow, they fit the criteria for like everything you mentioned, but that's what I'm kind of thinking is, you know, unproven guys, a lot of them. I'm not saying they won't be good. We just have to see it. You know, if you ask me midway through the season, they could be towards the top of the list. But as far as right now, this is just kind of where I have the Wizards. Too many chefs in the kitchen, folks. Coming in at number 12 on the list, we're going to have another team that I expect to be a 50+ win team. That is the Milwaukee Bucks. You're going to listen throughout this video and say, well, they fit the criteria. They fit the criteria. It's just a couple extra things here and there that can kind of sway me off of a team. And the Bucks have good criteria fits for this list. If you look at their guard forward centered, it's going to be Delon Wright, Taurean Prince, Bobby Portis at the backup 5. All 3 of those guys are good veteran NBA players that will provide a quality role on this team. That's not the issue. You also have guys like AJ Green, AJ Johnson, Andre Jackson Jr., Tyler Smith, Chris Livingston could be in the mix, right? There's plenty of depth at the guard and forward, and Bobby Portis, actually one of my favorite NBA players. I love his game. I love his intensity. I just don't love him as a backup 5. I don't think he really is a center at all, in my opinion. He's not good defensively at the center position. He's not gonna be. And while he is a really good floor spacer as a big and a solid offensive player who brings a lot of toughness and rebounding to this team as well, I just don't love him as a backup 5. If you were to tell me Bobby Portis would be the backup 4 and be the 6 man, I'd say he's probably going to be one of the best 6 man in the league as far as production goes this season. But if you were to put someone like maybe a little bit more defensive oriented with a little bit more athleticism and size at the backup 5, I would say this team is probably in the top, you know, 3 or 4 in this conference for this list. But I like the additions of these veterans here, Delon Wright, Taurean Prince again. I think they're going to make good, you know, solid rotation guys. And I love Bobby Portis. I can't see a world where he is a really great backup 5 defensively. That's kind of why I have the Bucks, you know, all the way down here at number 12. Coming in at number 11, another 50+ win team that just has a big hole in one of these positions here, and that is the New York Knicks. I actually think think the Knicks will have one of the best backup fives in the entire league in Mitchell Robinson, maybe the best. All right, we're talking about guys like Naz Reid, Daniel Gafford, and Mitchell Robinson. I think Mitchell Robinson's up there at the top of his game with no injuries. If he's fully healthy, he is in that conversation, no question for me. And I would expect him to be the backup five when he returns, at least for a little while when he can get his legs under him. People think that he's going to come in and start, instead of Josh Hart in this lineup when he comes back healthy. We'll just have to see about that. I personally think the lineup's a little bit better with Cat at 5 and Hart at the 2. But either way, even if you say Hart is going to be the, bench player in this scenario later in the season, I would still have them where they are because, the hole right now with this lineup, as far as the bench goes, is going to be the wing position. I mean, there's just not a proven wing on this entire roster coming off the bench. And again, this is another situation where they're going to stagger guys like Hart, Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges throughout the entire game. And so they're not going to really need a ton of depth at that position if everybody's healthy. But as we know, that's not, the world we live in as far as the NBA. Things happen. And so we need to prepare for that if we're an NBA GM. And I'm looking at this group of wings here. I just don't really see anyone that you could trust, at least right now. I could be proven wrong, that you could trust on this winning basketball team who's expecting to go all the way to the finals, who I think has a good shot at it, to bring one of these wings in any scenario and, really compete. You have rookies like Pacome Dadier, Kevin McCullough Jr., you bring in TJ Warren. We'll have to see if he's, serviceable anymore at this position at this point in his career. Jacob Toppin, some of these guys might not even make the roster, all right? So the wing position, there's a glaring hole there. And again, I know it's not supposed to be super deep because they're all in your starting lineup, all your wings, right? But that's the criteria for the list, and I think it's a good one because, again, if something were to happen, all it could take is a nagging injury, and, people miss games, and, some of these guys like Anunoby or Josh Hart, whatever, it just happens throughout a season. And so who steps up and fills that role? I just don't know who it's going to be on this roster right now. Mitchell Robinson's going to be one of the best backup fives in the league. We already got that covered. And then Miles McBride, I think, is perfectly fine to be this team's backup guard at either position. I think he could probably play either one at any given time, especially if you keep the wing depth and size on the floor next to him. I think that could totally work. He could be your Jalen Brunson substitution. You also have Cameron Payne, who I think is a little bit more offensively inclined than people are giving him credit for. He's a good offensive player, not a great defender. He's a smaller guard too. I'm not sure you want to put him and McBride on the floor at the same time, or him and Brunson on the floor at the same time. Wouldn't really make a lot of sense to me. Tyler Kolek, I think, is going to be probably a good, third string point guard on this team as a rookie, but again, unproven. And then Landry Shamet, might make the team as well. He could get some of those 2 guard minutes. Even if you say Josh Hart is going to be the bench player, when Mitchell Robinson comes back instead of Robinson, then you kind of have a hole at backup center, right? I like Precious Achiuwa. He's probably going to get a lot of these backup 4 minutes if I had to guess, and he can play backup 5 pretty effectively. I like him as a player. I think he's a competent enough depth piece at the big position. I like Ariel Hukporti as a rookie, but a lot of these guys just, I don't know if I would trust if I'm on a real legit contender to go out there and give me great minutes. It's just a little thin at certain positions. And so either way you look at it, whether it's Hart or Robinson, that's just kind of the way it is, given the criteria. Again, I could be argued either direction, whether you want to say they could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I could totally change my mind. A lot of these teams are very close in terms of where they're ranked. So Knicks fans, let me know down in the comment section how you feel. Coming in at number 10, I have another team that is, rebuilding and retooling with a lot of young talent off the bench, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. And again, there's a lot of players on this team that I like quite a bit. You have the 6-man criteria covered in Day'Ron Sharpe. I think he's a very good backup 5 in this league, and he's going to be again next season. He could even take a step up. You have proven guys like Bojan Bogdanovic, who's going to be your backup 4 most likely. You have Ben Simmons looking to make a big imprint on this league once again as a contract year approaches here, and he looks a little bit healthier. I've seen some preseason stuff. I like the way he's playing. You have guys that I think are going to take a massive leap in Noah Clowney, and I like Noah Clowney a lot. I think he is a breakout candidate this season, and realistically, this lineup, could be Ben Simmons. If you're putting 5 bench players on the floor here, it could be Ben Simmons, maybe Keon Johnson, maybe Zaire Williams, maybe Trendon Watford, but at the 3, it'd be Bojan Bogdanovic, at the 4, it'd be Noah Clowney, and at the 5, it'd be Day'Ron Sharpe. That's a good lineup here on this list. The problem is, again, there's a lot of question marks about this team. Is Ben Simmons going to be able to play like he's played in the preseason so far for 82 games? I just don't know how we could trust Ben Simmons at this point to be one of the better 6 men in the league. Obviously, if everything happens the right way for Ben Simmons and it really comes out and looks like his old self, then, this is one of the best benches in the league. He should be starting at that point, no question. I like Trendon Watford a lot. I think he's, a really good utility guy. I like Day'Ron Sharpe at the backup 5. Bojan Bogdanovic, I think a lot lot of these guys are going to be traded, especially guys like Bojan Bogdanovic, especially some of the starters, so I don't even think a lot of these guys will be coming off the bench at certain points throughout the season. But Keon Johnson, Zaire Williams, Noah Clowney, I like these players. I like their skill sets. We just haven't seen them all produce at a really good NBA level consistently in this league in either a long time or just at all in general. So a lot of these players have small sample size. When we're talking about guys like Trenton Watford, when we're talking about guys like Noah Clowney, I think Day'Ron Sharpe might have the biggest impact of anyone on this team as far as the bench goes. If I had to bet money on who's going to have the best season off the bench, it would 100% be Day'Ron Sharpe as the backup 5. And so, a lot of unproven talent, a lot of guys, we just have to see them get on the floor and put it all together over the course of a long season. And so, I could hear a case that this team, just looking at the players, it could be top 5. I mean, there's so many good players on this bench that could be looking for a role on a winning team. We just have to see it. I have to put them somewhere in the middle because while I can't put them at the back end of the list, they have more talent off the bench at every position than some of those other teams. They also don't have a lot of proven talent at all those positions. And so I can't put them towards the top. So I have to put them somewhere in the middle, and 10 is where they land. Coming in at number 9, again, this is where the list just gets totally chaotic for me and where to rank. I have the Chicago Bulls. And, if you look at the guard forward center thing that I've been talking about throughout this video, this is a good group for the Chicago Bulls. And you're going to have Lonzo Ball, who, again, kind of similar in some ways to Ben Simmons, where you're saying this guy hasn't played good basketball at a, super high level for a winning team in years now. And that's no fault of Lonzo's. I'm not saying that. But if, I just have to be objective and rank these players. I couldn't tell you right now whether Lonzo Ball is going to look like the old Lonzo Ball in, this season. And so we have to see what he looks like. But if I'm just projecting, I think there's just a lot of question marks there. And so Ayo Dosunmu, if that's your backup point guard, I mean, that is fantastic as a backup point guard. That's one of the best you can find in this conference, in my opinion. He's going to have a big year. Started playing really good basketball towards the end of the season. You have guys like Chris Duarte, Javon Carter, THT, Talen Horton-Tucker. He could be really a forward or a guard, but I think he's more of a guard at this point. That's a pretty good group of guards. I mean, that's one of the best in this conference. But, at the forward position, you also have some good talent here. Matas Buzelis, Torrey Craig, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips. And at the center position, you have Jalen Smith and Adama Sanogo. There is plenty of talent on this bench at all positions. I think Jalen Smith's going to make a good backup 5. We just have to see him, be a little bit more consistent, throughout an entire season. He's obviously having an increased role here in Chicago, coming over from Indiana, where he has all of the, skills and traits required to be a, really good quality rotation big here. But we just have to see it over the course of a season. Matas Buzelis, one of my favorite rookies in the draft, maybe my favorite. I love his skill set on both ends. I think he's going to be a fantastic NBA player. Whether or not we'll see that this season, for a winning type of team, I'm not sure if he's going to be a winning type player this season, or if he's going to be maybe a little bit inefficient and have to work through some of those rookie mistakes that they all do. Lonzo Ball, I think he could have a Lonzo Ball type season. And if that's the case, this team should definitely be ranked higher. But I think the safest player on this bench to predict a good season for is probably Ayo Dosunmu, And so there is a lot of talent in each category. Guard forward center or guard forward big, right? We just have to see it on the floor. This is an area of the list where I like a lot of these names for every position, and I like a lot of the talent, but we really trust these guys to be consistent, winning basketball players for an entire season. I'm not so sure. And so that's kind of why I have the Bulls at 9. Coming in at number 8, this is a team, again, same kind of deal here, but a lot of good talent, maybe some of the most on this list. We have the Detroit Pistons. And if you're talking about the center and forwards, I mean, this team is loaded. I like, there's a lot of proven talent within these two categories here. At the center position, you got Isaiah Stewart and Paul Reed, both competent backup 5s in my opinion. Both bring a lot of toughness and uniqueness in their skill sets. And I think both of them will be in line for some minutes at the backup 5 throughout the season. Excellent group there for the two men, tandem at backup 5. At the forward position, you got a ton of guys. I don't know exactly who the starting 3 of this team is going to be. It could be Simone Fontecchio. He hasn't played a lot of 3 in his career, so we'll have to see about that. It could be Malik Beasley, still another guy who hasn't played a lot of 3. It could be Asar Thompson. I wouldn't be shocked that any of those guys played 3. It could be even Ron Holland, but whoever it is, your bench is going to have like 3 of those guys at the forward position, and they can all play multiple positions. And so, at the forward group is insane. You either have Simone Fontecchio, Asar Thompson, or Ron Holland. You're going to have 2 of those guys minimum at the forward position. And so that's a great group there. Bobby Clinton, a rookie that, is looking to find a role on this team. Tim Hardaway Jr. has played a lot of 3 in his last few seasons. I don't know if I'd think of him as a 3, but he's a proven offensive talent. Malik Beasley, this guy's just a sniper. I don't know if he'll start or not. We'll have to see. And Marcus Sasser is certainly going to be probably the first guard off of this bench. And so a lot of these guys are young, and some of them are unproven, but at the end of the day, this is a talented group of players. I mean, at every position, you have guys that could have breakout seasons or just are sturdy players like Malik Beasley at the guard, like Fontecchio at the forward, and both of the centers are competent, proven centers that could play winning basketball, in my opinion, in Isaiah Stewart and Paul Reed. And so I just love this bench. I do. The reason I don't have it a little bit higher is just because this could be a situation, again, like we saw earlier in the list, where this could be a too many cooks in the kitchen type of deal. You know, not all these guys are going to be able to get minutes. At that point, it doesn't matter how many good players you have if you can't get them all on the floor. And I'm not sure who the best player on this bench even is. I think there's a lot of good, even starting caliber guys towards the top of this bench when you know, if you're going to rank these guys in terms of talent. But the list gets a little bit better as we progress, and you know, some of these names could be not as good as we think with the Pistons next season, like Marcus Sasser, who I think is a good player. We just haven't, you know, really seen him in his rookie season last year have a consistent kind of role and a consistent production stream throughout the season. And so we'll have to see if that is, you know, if he is the backup point guard, which he probably will be. I don't know who else would be. You know, this is going to have to be a kind of make or break deal for him, whether or not he's going to be in Detroit long term. You know, all of those forwards, there's so many good forwards on this team, like even, you know, starting five and bench, that I just don't know how you're going to be able to get them all involved in this, you know, rotation. So again, at a certain point, like your 9th, 10th, and 12th man, it could be really good, but they're just not going to see minutes. And so how do we say that having a 10th, 11th, and 12th man that are really good and better than everybody else's 10th, 11th, and 12th guy, how do we say that that's more important? Because at the end of the day, none of them are playing. And so I don't know if that's the situation. Pistons fans, I could be wrong. I could be convinced this team is top 5. I had them originally in the top 5 when I did my rough, you know, kind of rankings here. There's just a lot of question marks. You know, I don't like question marks when I'm ranking teams for, you know, projections, right? So coming in at number 7, I have my Philadelphia 76ers. You know, originally I had them top 5, but as I kind of thought about it a little bit more, I kind of started seeing some weaknesses here. And, you know, obviously they're kind of similar to the Pistons. There's just so many good players, and some of them just won't see minutes on this team, you know. And if we're looking at the guard group here, Kyle Lowry, Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, Jared McCain, that is a good group of guards there. You know, I think a lot of winning experience, a lot of versatility there. Kyle Lowry is going to be the backup one, no question for me. Jared McCain, I'm not sure he's going to have a role on this team, you know, with our lofty expectations we're going to have for this group to, you know, hopefully get out of the second round, right? Reggie Jackson's going to be a good depth piece. Not sure how much he's going to play. Maybe if other people are out, he could get a shot. Eric Gordon is certainly going to see a ton of minutes here. He's going to be probably one of the top 6 players in minutes on this team, or 7 maybe. Yeah, he'll probably have the 7th or 8th most minutes, but he will be in the rotation come playoff time and throughout the regular season. But the problem I have with this guard group, it's just really small. You know, there's a lot of size deficiency in this group. You know, you don't even have guys that you're not going to play that are big. The players like Reggie Jackson, Jared McCain, these guys are both pretty small. You know, Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry, who are certainly in line for a big role, they're going to be pretty small. You know, I'm not saying that is the determining factor of how good a bench can be. Size isn't everything, right? But, you know, just ask Kyle Lowry about that. He can, you know, he's going to probably be a Hall of Famer by the time he retires. I think he's still a good defender. I think he positions himself well. You know, obviously he's lost a lot of athleticism, but he's a good shooter. He's a good decision maker, just a guy you could trust out there to make the right play on both ends of the floor. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of shooting there, but when you look at the forwards, some unprovenness here. The forward group is really kind of what bogs my team down in the rankings as far as some of these other teams I have ahead of them. And I like Gershon Yabusele. I think he's going to be a good player for this team. I would expect him to earn a role. He's a big body. He's a good floor spacer at the 4 position. He could probably play small ball 5 if you really wanted him to. I think he sets good screens. He's got a good basketball IQ, but, you know, just haven't seen him play winning NBA basketball yet. You know, Ricky Council IV, another one of my Sixers favorites. He's going to be our backup wing. You know, this is another team that has 3 starting wings that are going to see almost all of the wing minutes. But we just saw Paul George at the time of recording this video last night hyperextend his knee, and so a lot of these players are older. We're going to need guys like Ricky Council to step up. I like Ricky Council. I think he played really well in his limited role last season for the team. He's a freak athlete, but, you know, can he hit a consistent 3? I'm not so sure. Mechanics don't look too great to me, but I do love Ricky. Again, just a pretty unproven guy in the grand scheme of things, right? KJ Martin, another, obviously I like all these players on my team, but I do like KJ Martin as an athlete, as a, you know, finisher around the rim, you know, exceptional transition finisher, lob threat, but he's a little bit undersized for the 4 position, and we've seen some concerns about his outside shooting. And so this forward group isn't great. It's just not compared to all these other teams. Now, the saving grace of this bench is clearly Andre Drummond, who I think is in conversations with guys like Mitchell Robinson, Daniel Gafford, and Naz Reid for best backup 5. I think the best backup 5 is clearly Naz Reid in my opinion. But then when you talk about about guys like Robinson, Daniel Gafford, Andre Drummond, he's certainly up there. He is a top 5 backup center, in my opinion, in this league, and he is just going to have such a big and good role on this team. He really elevates this team's ranking for me, because the thing I think that separates us from the Knicks as far as, where I'm ranking these teams, you could say, D-Have, that's kind of a similar situation to the Knicks. Great backup 5, some smaller guards that are going to play, big minutes that, serviceable enough, and then the forward's just a black hole, right? There's nothing there. I kind of think our forwards are just a little bit better than the Knicks forwards. I think all 3 of these guys, KJ Martin, Ricky Council, and Yabusele, could have good seasons. They certainly have a lot of strengths. The Knicks are just kind of throwing rookies and guys like TJ Warren and, some of these guys, I'm not sure if they're going to make the team. And so, not saying they won't be good. I would trust our forward group a little bit more than the Knicks forward group. And, the backup center is a little bit of a wash to me. And I think the guards are a little bit stronger on our team as a whole. And so I just give us a little bit of a boost in that regard. Now, that's number 7. Sorry, I ramble a lot about my Sixers. I apologize. But again, a good argument down in the comment section could convince me that the Sixers are literally 13. And so please let me know what you're feeling down in the comments. I do like the bench group, though, I will say. And coming in at number 6, we have the Miami Heat. And obviously the Heat have been one of the deeper teams in the league in recent memory. When you look at this group here, for the guards, we have Jaime Jaquez Jr., an excellent elite 6-man. He's going to be off the bench for this team, no question. This is a really good two-way player with good sound fundamentals who has good playmaking upside, good defensive upside. His shot will be improved this season, I think. And he's just a very smart, high basketball IQ player. He's a good athlete as well. He's probably going to be one of the better 6-men on this list. We have another guard, Josh Richardson, another good athlete who has defensive upside, can knock down a catch and shoot 3. Alec Burks, a great shooter. He'll maybe take some of the backup point guard responsibility, I would imagine. For the forward group, it's excellent. I mean, it is excellent. Haywood Highsmith, good 3-and-D wing, good basketball player. And then Duncan Robinson and Kevin Love, 2 snipers out there at the forward position. Kevin Love's your backup 4, and Duncan Robinson will come in and play some of those backup wing minutes when you need extra shooting. And then at the backup center position, you have maybe the most dynamic physical talent in the entire draft, and that is Khalil Ware and Thomas Bryant. Now, you could make a case and say, D-Have, you said all these other guys were unproven. That's why I had them ranked lower. Khalil Ware at the backup 5, that's unproven. I hear you. And I know that Khalil Ware is a rookie. I know he has concerns with his motor. Counter to that would just be, let's just even say that Khalil Ware is a total bust, which obviously he's not going to be. He's a total bust, can't play. And you have Thomas Bryant at the backup 5. That's not great, right? That's not a great scenario. Well, when you consider some of the other depth on this team, like Kevin Love, right? Maybe Kevin Love could play backup 5. I don't necessarily think he'd be a good backup 5, but he could play there in a pinch. That would get you through some games. But at the end of the day, like, if I'm projecting things, obviously unproven talent is a big factor in this list. But for the guards and forwards, this team is just so dynamic at both of those groups. And I do think Khalil Ware will be one of the best rookies in this league. Might potentially have the biggest upside of any rookie big. Jaime Jaquez is going to be one of the best 6-men in the league. That bumps this team up a lot for me. This guy's going to play 20 to 30 minutes a game and give you excellent production on both ends. Kevin Love is going to come in and rebound the basketball, shoot the 3 really well, be a smart, high IQ passer and playmaker. Haywood Highsmith is going to defend really well on the perimeter. Duncan Robinson, one of the best shooters in the league. Josh Richardson had a good year with the Heat last season. This group is just so versatile, right? That's kind of why I rank the Heat a little bit above some of these other teams. They're exceptionally big at all these positions. They have good shooting at all these positions. Most of these guys are really good defenders. Like, I don't know what is not to like about this group ahead of some of these other teams. Now, coming in at number 5, have the Atlanta Hawks. And this team really kind of checks all the boxes. They have a lot of great top-end talent on this team. At the guard position, you're going to have Dyson Daniels, who I think is an exceptional versatile defender, one of the best bench perimeter guys defensively on this list. He's going to have a big role this season, much bigger in more of a natural position this season than he had with New Orleans. Kobe Buffkin is going to have a minutes increase. We'll have to see how he plays, a little bit unproven there, no question. Vit Krejci, I think, is probably going to be one of the backup guards on this team. I'm not sure he's even a guard at all, to be honest with you. He's played mostly forward throughout his career. He's a great shooter, right? And he's got good size as well, but I'm just not sure he's a guard. And so other than Buffkin and Daniels, this group is pretty thin, but I do like Daniels a lot to carry a lot of that responsibility. DeAndre Hunter, probably going to be one of the best offensive wings on this bench ranking list. Mohamed Goye and David Roddy, will have to see what they can do, but really where this team's bread and butter is the backup center position. They have 3 guys that could see minutes if something were to happen, injuries, knock on wood it doesn't, but Onyeka Okongwu maybe, certainly in that discussion for best backup 5s in the league. He is so consistent, just a total versatile package as far as versatility goes, right? He has the defense, he has increased his shooting a little bit. He's a good offensive player, fundamentally sound guy, good playmaker, can shoot a mid-range pretty well. Defensively, he's a little bit undersized, but he makes it work. He's just such a rock solid backup 5. And then you have Larry Nance Jr. is probably going to be playing backup 4 for this team, and he can shoot the 3 as well. And he's a good athlete and a versatile player as well. And then Cody Zeller is probably your 3rd string 5. But overall, like, this team just has, when you consider guys like Dyson Daniels, Onyeka Kongwu, and DeAndre Hunter, that guard forward center is so elite as far as this list. We're talking about 3 guys that are very versatile with, you know, excellent 6-man capabilities, right? You have 3 of those guys, and then Larry Nance, and then, you know, Vic Krejci and Kobe Buffkin, maybe. I just feel like it's so sturdy that I don't know how I could rank them any lower. And again, the part of the criteria was the 6-man category, and this team has 3 of them. And so I don't know how I could rank them lower. Coming in at number 4, we have the Charlotte Hornets, okay? And people are gonna say, oh, another young team rebuilding, right? A lot of unproven talent. Wrong. Listen, Trey Mann, okay, who is gonna have a big time breakout season this year for the Hornets. Down the stretch of the season when he played with the Hornets, in a limited sample size, I'll grant you that, he was phenomenal on both ends, okay? This is a versatile basketball player who's, you know, gonna be most likely the backup guard, you know, probably the first guard off the bench. I think he could guard multiple positions and maybe even play point guard, right? Or shooting guard. Doesn't really matter. He's got the size for either one. Vasily Micic, this point guard from Serbia, he was in the Olympics, but he played for the Hornets last season, and he's an exceptional playmaker, and when he gets hot, he can really knock down a 3. He could be a backup point guard for this team, no question, but his playmaking and his IQ is exceptional. I think this guy is certainly a capable backup point guard. Seth Curry, another guard off the bench here who can shoot really well. This is a proven talent. Nick Smith Jr. had a great summer league this season, and Dwayne Washington Jr., Charlie Brown Jr., these are some of the other guys I wrote down. When we're talking about the forwards, there are 2 quality forwards on this team, okay? When we talk about Grant Williams, who came over from Dallas in that trade last season, this is a knockdown corner 3 specialist who has a lot of toughness and good defense as well. This is just a great plug and play 3-and-D guy at the 4. He played exceptional with Charlotte last season. And also Cody Martin. Talk about a guy that's versatile, that could play the wing, he could play a guard position, or he could play the 4. Good defender. You know, this guy, just like his brother on my team now, Caleb, you know, Cody Martin is a very versatile, dynamic type of skill set player who can do a lot of different things. Backup center is totally locked down covered. Another great backup 5. Definitely one of the best on this list. Nick Richards, high energy, high motor, good rebounder, good rim runner, right? This guy is just a good finisher, like totally rock solid at the backup 5. Then you have veteran presence in Taj Gibson, who could potentially see a 3rd string center role. So this team, like, I don't know how people will say this team is not top 4. Maybe I'm overrating them a little bit, but I just love the guard group, man. Trey Mann, Micic, and Seth Curry. I forgot to even mention Tajon Salon, who is a, you know, top pick in the draft this season. I think he was 7th overall. He's probably going to be the 3rd string 4. He'll probably see some minutes here and there. This is a versatile talent on both ends, in my opinion. Kind of a raw player, but when you talk about Grant Williams and Cody Martin, this is one of the best front courts on this list, I think. As far as guys that are going to bring a lot of toughness and versatile skill sets, Nick Richards, one of the best backup 5s. He's certainly up there with some of the other guys we've seen on the list so far. And Trey Mann, who I think is going to have a breakout season. And so, you know, you could convince me that, you know, this team is a lot lower. I could hear a case for that, but I just love this Hornets group off the bench. And coming into the top 3, this is where the bread is buttered, folks. Coming in at number 3, we have the defending NBA champions in the Boston Celtics. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, D-Have, you're either going to say 2 things. D-Have, they are way too low. They're defending champions. Come on, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, and Sam Hauser. Come on. We got 3 backup 5s that could play on a team. We're going to say the Celtics, they only have like 4 guys that you could throw out there. They run a very small rotation. Come on, D-Have, what are you talking about? Also, before we get into it, I'm counting Al Horford because, again, once KP comes back, he's going to be the starter, no question. So Al Horford's going to be the backup 5 for this ranking. But listen, at the guard, you might not be the deepest. At the forward, you might not be the deepest. But at center, you probably are the deepest. I mean, you legitimately have 3 players that could be a backup 5 in this league, in my opinion. A couple of them might not be the best, but listen to the Celtics guard forward center here. Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Al Horford. And then you bring in Lonnie Walker IV to be a backup wing for you guys, who I think is probably going to make the team and have some kind of limited role, but he's a bucket, no question. Peyton Pritchard is an excellent backup point guard, one of the best in the league. Jaden Springer, I like a lot, another former Sixer who I think is a good defender. Jordan Walsh, who could be looking to earn a role on this team as a low-end rotation guy. And then at the center position, I mean, come on. Al Horford, another top-tier guy. Maybe the most versatile center on this entire list, okay? As far as backup centers go, he might be the most versatile. He might not be the best as far as just sheer impact, but everything he's able to do on the basketball floor is, it's certainly probably the most versatile. Luke Cornett, who could be a backup 5 on a lot of NBA teams. He had a really good season last year, and he's just a good, solid backup 5 in my opinion. And then Xavier Tillman, who could see backup 4 minutes. He could be the third string backup 5. This guy is another unique skill set type of guy, pretty versatile player. Nemes Keita, who is a giant, massive human being, big body, good finisher. I just think there's 4 centers on this team on the backup end of things where it just separates this team. And then the rock solid guard and wing play is just going to be so crucial. Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, come on, man. The Celtics are top 3, no question. I gave 2 other teams a slight edge, but I could hear a case that the Celtics are number 1 if you want to let me hear it down in the comments. Coming in at number 2, folks, we have the top 2 teams, and these are no question the top 2 teams. When I put this list together, I saw all of the teams. I put all their benches down on paper, and not paper, it was actually my iPhone notepad. When I'm starting to put all these benches together, I saw right away these 2 teams were 1 and 2. I didn't know what order exactly, and I still kind of struggle with it, but at number 2 I have the Indiana Pacers. I mean, it's just from top to bottom, like every position, not even every position, but like 3 guys for every position. This is going to be a deep rotation. The Pacers are going to have so many different versatile skill sets off the bench here. It's going to be TJ McConnell, maybe one of the best backup point guards in the league, maybe the best. Maybe you could say Tyus Jones previously, but now he's starting, right? TJ is just so good at backup point guard, maybe the best in the league. Benedict Mathurin is probably going to be the 2 guard who's going to see a lot of time as a 6-man scorer. Look for him if he sits on the bench throughout the entire season to be a 6-man of the year candidate with his scoring production. It's going to be incredible. Ben Shepherd is a player that, could see more of a big role again this season because he even played some meaningful minutes in the playoffs last season. I know Mathurin was out, but we'll have to see. I like Ben Shepherd a lot. Obi Toppin for the forwards. I mean, this is a guy you extended on a big deal if you're a Pacers fan. He is a freak athlete. He's a freak transition finisher. He is a monster dunker and lob threat. Good 3-ball shooter now too in his career, and I think he has some defensive upside as well. It just fits the identity of the team. He's going to be on those fast breaks, throw ahead passes from Halliburton. It's just going to make this team so dynamic in transition. He's one of the biggest reasons for that. Jarris Walker, looking to make a big time impact on this team. He's going to have an opportunity to do that. Again, an unproven guy as far as this list goes, but no question he has all of the intangibles and tools to make it happen. I think he's going to have a chance and get a role early on, and if everything goes well, he could be the X factor for this team. You also have guys like Johnny Furphy and Enrique Freeman. These guys are rookies, but probably going to be buried towards the end of the bench, but they were notable for this team. And then at the backup 5, you have 2 guys that I think are going to make decent ones in James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson. James Wiseman coming over from Detroit. Obviously, people are going to say he's a bust, whatever, but I think he's going to make a good backup 5 for the Pacers. He is a good rebounder, excellent athlete as well, and I think he has upside for a good defensive big and good finisher, lob threat, rim runner kind of guy. And Isaiah Jackson is a little bit undersized to play 5, but he has excellent energy and instincts and offensive rebounding capabilities. So listen, this is a dynamic group on all 3 levels. There is not much of a weakness on this team as far as the bench goes. Maybe you could say the backup 5 is a little bit more subpar than some of these other teams, and I might agree with that, but I do think both of these guys have proven that they could be backup 5s and play good enough basketball, and so I just don't know what else this group could have other than more of a sturdy, just one backup 5 that's like super sturdy. That would make them number 1 in my opinion, but other than that, they are just so good across the board, and I could be convinced that they're number 1. I really could. But coming in at number 1, we have the Orlando Magic. I know this team is full of unproven talent. They are, but the amount of players they have that could play on a good basketball team is just staggering. Again, I know I said before that doesn't necessarily make a team better, right? You have a bunch of rookies, a bunch of guys that are looking to break out. The size of this bench is incredible. At the backup 5 position, you have 2 backup 5s that could play meaningful minutes on a playoff team in Mo Wagner and Goga Bitadze. Both of them had exceptional years last season. Mo Wagner really broke out as one of the better, depth big pieces in the entire Eastern Conference. Goga Bitadze, just a big body, eats up a lot of space, plays physical basketball in the interior. The kind of guy that the Magic love to have with their defensive identity. Talk about defensive identity. Jonathan Isaac at the forward position, one of the most freakish athletic defenders we've seen. He could probably guard 1 through 5 on any given night, maybe 1 through 4 if you're being a little bit uncharitable there. But either way, Jonathan Isaac, he has to improve a little bit as an offensive player, but as a finisher, he's dynamic. We could see a 3-ball and increase a little bit more. At his best in the past, he has been a solid enough offensive player to stay on the floor and get some opportunities offensively, but no question, this guy is one of the more more freakish defenders, could be a DPOY candidate in a, perfect season type of world for him. You also have Tristan Da Silva, again, a rookie, but he brings a lot of shooting to this team. He's just going to be a great shooter. Jet Howard, Caleb Houston, I think Jet Howard's in for a big offensive season. Again, unproven, I hear you, but at the guard position of Cole Anthony, going to be one of the better backup point guards in the league. He's a good playmaker. He's a good scorer. He's a good shooter, and he adds a lot of offensive pop to this, second unit. He can create his own shot a little bit. He can play make for others really well. He's a good rebounder at the guard position, and I just think he's one of the better, backup point guards on this list. And then you have guys like Anthony Black, who, again, another guy that's just a monster, big size for the position type of guy who could be in for a big defensive season. I've already seen him in stretches of the season along with Jet Howard play, decent basketball. Gary Harris is a three-point sniper, proven talent, monster three-point shooter, and then Corey Joseph for the veteran presence. This team is just so big, they're so versatile, and they're so physically tough and so defensive oriented. This could be a starting five, and they could probably be a solid enough defense to compete with NBA teams. Like, they're going to be so good defensively. They just have everything. They have enough shooting. They have the perimeter defense, the interior defense. Even if you want to say D-Have, you didn't really count the other guys on the other teams that were unproven, but you're counting guys like Tristan Da Silva, Jet Howard, and Anthony Black. Fine, we'll just take those guys away. I would still put this team around number one with the proven talent they have. Like, then it would be Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Wagner, Goga Batadze, and I still think that would be an elite bench unit for this conference, right? This is a situation where you have your roles defined, right? We know who's going to be the backup for every position. There's not too many cooks in the kitchen, but we do have extra cooks in case we need them if you're the Magic, right? We do have guys that could break out and earn, big time minutes here over some of these more proven players that we could see big seasons from, like Jet Howard, like Anthony Black, and like Tristan Da Silva. And if one of those guys has somewhat of a big leap this season, this is by far the best bench in the Eastern Conference. If none of these guys do, it's still an elite group, no question. And so that is the top 15 from worst to best rankings of every Eastern Conference bench. That will round out our 4-part series, folks. We did it. Thank you for sticking around all the way to the end of this series with me. It's been a fun time. I know a lot of you guys might be upset with the comments, but just try to keep in mind that these rankings are so close. I tried to stress that a lot throughout this video, but if you don't believe me, let me know down in the comment section why your team or a team that I rank too low should be higher, or a team that I rank too high should be lower. Don't just say they should be lower. Tell me why, right? I want to have a conversation about it. Again, I'm willing to have my mind changed on all of this stuff, so please let me know down in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end of the series. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you doing, man? We upload content just like this multiple times a week, sometimes every day. I think during the season I'm going to start doing everyday uploads again. It is just tough with the length of some of these videos and the amount of effort that goes into each one. Maybe I could do a little bit better of a job of parsing them out. Some videos like this where it takes a lot of work and effort, and some other videos where maybe it's a little bit chiller. I don't know. Let me know down in the comment section if you want to see more videos like this or a little bit of a mix. Either way, I will catch you guys in the next one, hopefully tomorrow. So if you want to see more content like this, there will be a ton of it throughout the season and just in general on the channel. Please subscribe if you guys haven't already. We're on the road to 15K and we're getting a little bit closer each day, and I want you guys to be a part of this journey with the channel because I intend to do great things in the NBA community. I work really hard on the channel and I love it more than anything. Basketball is my passion. I love coming up with these videos and executing them. It's my favorite thing in the world, and this channel really is everything to me. So if you guys don't want to miss more content with a lot of passion, a lot of objectivity, and with a lot of careful attention to detail and approach to it, please subscribe to the channel. I promise that's what you'll get every single upload. It'll always be my best work because that's what you guys deserve, and that's what the NBA community deserves. So basketball is the best sport in the world. Please drop a like on the video if you guys haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, follow my Twitch, follow my Twitter, links down in the description, and also the links to part 1, 2, and 3 will be down in the description below. If you guys haven't seen them, make sure you guys check those out. People seem to really enjoy those videos, so more series like this to come. I have a lot of fun stuff planned. Please believe me, folks. You have to believe me. I promise you will not be disappointed if you stick around. Subscribe, notifications turned on, and I will catch you guys in the next one. This is your boy D-Have, and as always, peace.